Those burgers were good.
Those burgers was so good.
We went a little bit gourmet.
Very gourmet.
I mean, I pretty much destroyed the bacon, but other than that, it was good.
Yeah, I was going to say, put that on one person only.
Yeah, I ruined it. In Australia, our bacon is long, thick, and
Tender.
delicious.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say.
I feel like you're bringing on a lot of trouble to yourself that you don't want.
We're just a little bit longer and thicker down under, you know?
Depends on who you ask, I think.
Welcome to Mountain State Overland.
Right? So my name is Zachary Diehl, and I'm a full-time traveler and professional overlander. I don't know what you call it. I just make dumb TikTok videos and Instagram videos, and then
You're a TikTok overlander?
and I just leverage that into traveling as much as possible. That's about it.
I'm Matt Baker.
I'm Tom Breakspear.
We're from the Explore Life, so we're outdoors channel, YouTube channel from Australia. Full driving, fishing, camping, overlanding, anything outdoors. We've been shooting YouTube for the last 6 years. We do it full time. We also have a online clothing and camping store. And we've got multiple creators underneath the brand, and different styles of four-wheel drives, from old school Hiluxes through to the 2500 build and everything in between. So what was the name of the track we did today?
Bald Mountain Jeep Trail. I had never been on it before. It's one of kind of Virginia's few remaining iconic Jeep trails, second to Potts Creek. I'd say Potts Mountain Jeep Trail is probably, we'll throw you for a whirl for sure.
Yeah.
But there's some very definitive bypasses that you can take and stuff. And it was a fun, I mean, I didn't know what to expect. It was definitely dense.
It sure was. It was very tight.
I enjoyed the trail. I think there was some nice views. We're at the time of year where the colours were absolutely stunning. There was a bit of water around, so we had some nice little creek crossings.
Yeah.
Nothing too difficult, very cruisy. The only downside was for the full-size trucks. We were in a world of hurt. Well, you probably went fine today.
It felt like a walk in the park. I mean, it was pretty simple in a 4Runner. I mean, it's funny because the 4Runner's like not a small vehicle, you know, by a lot of standards, but in comparison to three full-size vehicles, three full-size trucks, it feels very, very small and nimble.
Were you actually getting scratches today, or were you like in the clear?
No, I mean, we were like, well, because I was behind you most of the day, so I was watching you go through stuff, and I'd see you hit stuff, and then just we would cruise right through it. But there were definitely sections where we would get some pinstripes and stuff like that. I think the biggest difference just was the fact that, like, I was watching all three of the trucks hit stuff above you, and we never hit anything above us.
Yeah, I brought the chainsaw to clear stuff across the trail. I didn't think about having to clear stuff above me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we did a lot of that today.
There was a lot. Well, yeah, you did. You were out every couple miles.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that you underestimate is when you're building a truck, you think, you know, bigger, badder, better, but
Sometimes it's not.
there's a height limit where you really start getting in trouble.
Yeah, like that one branch that got hung up on your solar panels that you had to get out for.
Yeah.
I mean, that thing was like about to rip off those solar panels. It was trying to take them.
I'm glad we jumped out for that one because it was wedged, like proper wedged in the mounts, because we saw it on Jason's big ram in front of us and we were like, wow, that was millimeters from taking his Starlink off his roof.
Yeah, we watched it miss the Starlink by like millimeters. And we were like, all right, we'll go slow for this, stop, and then little rearrange.
Head up the top and take her off. But
So what about full size in Australia?
So full size in Australia is a very, very new thing. We haven't had access to the American vehicles, except for probably the last, I'd say heavily 3 years, and then the last 5 years is where they slowly creeped in. So it's always been certain companies bringing them over, doing a conversion, and then being able to purchase them. Now we're seeing Ram Australia, so you can buy direct from Ram as such. Still brought over and converted, not coming out of a factory, right-hand drive. We've got, the rumour is the Tundra will be in Australia next year, which is pretty exciting for a lot of people. But predominantly most of the tracks, the hardcore stuff, like you're in a bit of strife. And so coming from a 79 series and being a Toyota guy to going into a full-size Ram, copped a bit of heat. And we've got a new truck coming next year that we're going to build, and the idea is to see how far we can push it and how remote we can take it, and find out if the Ram can stack up against the infamous sort of 79 series Land Cruiser. But yeah, it's a very new concept.
And in the last, like, even 12 months, we've seen them start to be everywhere. Like, the aftermarket shops are now just full of these big American vehicles where Australians are finding out the power figures that come standard out of the motors. You don't have to coil convert a 79 series. They come standard with coils. It was a bit of a game changer, and you're seeing them everywhere.
The biggest thing is weights. So we have different weights standards to you guys on how heavy we can load a truck and how much we can tow. So the biggest reason everyone's pushed into the American vehicles is for the GVM, so that the vehicle's not overweight. So to take a standard 79 series Land Cruiser, you're playing with 3.5 ton. If you're going to do a $40,000 conversion, which is what I did on my last 79, you're up at 4.5 ton. Did I say 3.5 or 4.5 the first time? 3.5. 3.5, yeah, right. So whereas when you hop into a Ram straight away, you're already at the 4.5 ton. You can tow a 4.5 ton item. So everyone wants to take more luxuries camping these days. They're towing bigger caravans, and you just cannot do it legally unless you step up to the full-size vehicle. So that's been the big push, which is interesting. So you're taking full-size vehicle, towing the big stuff, loading them up, and then you still need to take them to the remote locations, chase reliability and capability. So it's still up in the air.
You know, based on today's experience, how do you decide what it is that you want and what it is that you want to build?
For a camping option, I don't know. That's a great question. I mean, I think it's kind of hard because I think it's dependent a lot on the region that you're in. I mean, if you're around here, if you're in the southeast, or if you're in the PNW, I mean, the two of them are very, very similar, but you deal with a lot of tight trails and tight places. And, you know, something like a 4Runner or Tacoma or whatever else, like that mid-size range with a camping option on top of it, which you're going to be limited to, like, you know, rooftop tents or, you know, maybe like an Alu-Cab or a Go Fast camper or whatever it is on the back of it. Like, you're still relatively small. If you're roaming around like the American high desert and the Rockies and stuff like that, then you have more options for longer term trips, I think, for a lot of people, and for larger vehicles as well, because those trails aren't nearly as tight as they are out here. So I mean, a lot of your camping options just really depend on the region that you're going to be in. And then the second thing is just, I really think it's about being like realistic with the kind of trips that you're going to take. I think there's a lot of people out there that have this like grandiose idea of going out for weeks at a time, but in reality, like for most of us, we work 40-hour work weeks. We have other responsibilities, homes to take care of, family to take care of, and stuff like that. And you get out on long weekends and the weekends here and there and stuff like that. And you don't need much to get out there. You know, like a rooftop tent is pretty luxurious for most people to get out for a long weekend. But, you know, a swag or a good tent or whatever else, they're also great options. I mean, if you're going out for a couple of times a year, like, you don't have to drop thousands of dollars on a big expensive rooftop tent to go out a couple of times a year. But I mean, if you want to be really comfortable and stuff like that, and you want to spend a lot of your weekends out in the middle of nowhere, then rooftop tent is great, but I mean, there's lots of great options. It just depends on who you are.
Yeah, definitely always just comes down to what do you want to do with your vehicle, because there's no dream vehicle that can do it all. I've had a lot of different setups, and we own a lot of different setups, from $5,000 92 Hiluxes through to a couple of $100,000 rigs. There is not an ideal setup, so you've just got to custom build your truck to suit what you want to do, and that's all you can do.
So we did a trail today, and tomorrow we're gonna tour. So kind of technically like 4-wheel drive today, tour tomorrow.
Yeah.
I know that's pretty unique to the U.S., right? Like, so we have a large population of people that, you know, really like to get out and take their Jeep in the woods and put it to its limits and then go home. But we have this other population of people that, you know, want to get out their truck and be prepared for what may come, but also go camping. Like, do you guys have the same? Do you have that in Australia too? Like,
100%. You guys definitely have more segregated markets, yeah. So you have your diehard rock crawlers, your full-time overlanders, which we don't have the term overlanding back home. We just have, I think the closest word would be touring to overlanding, but we just call it going camping. So we do have the guys that build the more hardcore trucks that hit the really hard trails.
Yeah.
And then we've got the guys that tour a little bit more. That's our two segments. Over here, because you have so many people, I think you really segregate specifically what you're doing. Is you know, you got the mudders, the Jeep guys, the hardcore Moab rock crawling, and then you've got the touring, and everything just seems to be a little bit more segregated over here. That's how we see it anyway.
Yeah.
Do you agree, Tommy, or what?
Yeah, I think back home people they love going out on weekends just like everyone else does. Yeah, it's all based on the person who does it. Back home, we have the people who go hardcore wheeling, but they've got some sort of touring setup in the back.
Yeah, we're a bit more crossed over. Everyone likes to do a bit of everything, whereas here, I think you guys really dial in on one specific thing.
I would agree. I mean, I actually, it's funny because I don't know if realistically people actually dial in on one thing, or if like ideologically they dial in on one thing.
Yeah.
Like, I think people get a lot of these ideas in their head, like, oh, I'm just part of this one group, and don't give themselves a leeway to be like, well, I actually do like all these things, you know, like I do want to do all these things, and they just, I don't know.
If you take a diehard Jeep guy going to Moab, he's probably not doing a 3-month touring trip, right? Because the car's just not built for it. It's sitting on like 40-inch tyres. He doesn't have a great amount of storage. There's not a fridge capacity. You don't have the long range fuel tanks. You're not running rooftop tents because you're trying to keep all the weight down low. Like, it's
Right, but a lot of those guys will get what's called a toy hauler, or what they call a toy hauler, which is like an RV of sorts, and they'll tow the Jeep out to that spot. They are set up for it, just very different, yeah. And it's a whole different ball game, because it's like, you know, those toy haulers, like,
see when you say toy hauler in Australia, when you say toy hauler, that's a trailer behind a 4-wheel drive.
Yeah.
Loaded up with dirt bikes, Can-Ams.
Yeah.
And then one thing you do not see in Australia is a bus towing a fully kitted out Jeep.
Like on our way over here, I'll never forget it. We had like this 40-foot bus, like full bus with all the slide outs, towing a huge toy hauler, and it had a Gladiator on 40s and then a Wrangler on 40s on the one trailer. That blew me and Maddie's mind. We were like, holy moly, they've got it all.
yeah. But I mean, you'll get that crowd when it comes to like the like more hardcore like rock crawlers and stuff. The guys that want to go out, or guys and girls that want to go out and like go to the hardest spots, or go to Moab, or whatever it is, and really test out their vehicles. Like, they have a setup so that they can live out of it while they're on the road doing that. But it's different because it's like, you know, those things that are towing those Jeeps out there or those vehicles out there, like you can't take them into an area like
Yeah,
this.
they're a house.
Yeah,
They're
it's a
literally
house, yeah.
house on wheels.
So you're limited. You have to go to like designated campgrounds and stuff like that on the way. And then there's like the blend, right, where you have like something like this,
Yeah.
the full size truck, where you're comfortable in, but it's definitely not like it's not a house, you know. Yeah.
And you're not wheeling at Moab
Right.
to a point.
To some extent, you're not doing the hardest trails at Moab. You can still do a number of them, but not the hardest ones. But
It's a balance of both worlds without having a bus and a Gladiator behind it.
right, and it's odd because like we're all part of like the same group,
Yeah, it's the same community.
but there's so much like infighting of like who's better,
Yeah.
and it's just like, well, it's all just a little bit different. It's all just depends on what you really want
It's
to
all
do.
the same. It's all about getting outdoors, exploring with your friends, your family, meeting up with new people, finding new spots together. But just because someone drives a Jeep, someone does it in a bus or a full-size truck, people are separated.
Let's start with you, Zach. What's one question that you are dying to ask these two guys?
I think we should have started recording earlier. No, I was going to ask, like, I mean, what is your perspective on American four-wheel drive culture versus Australian four-wheel drive culture? Because they're so similar, but so different in so many ways. So what are like the biggest comparisons you could make and the biggest like differences you realize?
I think Americans take overlanding a little bit more serious than Australians. We just grew up doing it. I feel like it's a relatively new concept over here to a point, which, like, how old's overlanding in America? Like,
I mean, it really started to get its rise like pre-pandemic. It started to kind of like have some like traction, and then when the pandemic hit, it really skyrocketed.
cool. So you're talking 5-6 years overlanding. See, in Australia, we've been overlanding
For 100 years.
I don't know how many years, but like I grew up, you decked out a car, we drove to the tip of Australia. I did that when I was 19 years old. I'm 34, so I did that when I was 19 years old. There was no Instagram, there was no cameras. Yeah. We loaded me and my mate loaded the truck up with a fridge. We didn't have room for swag, so we just had a stretcher and a sleeping bag. We drove to the tip of Australia, did one of the most hardcore tracks in Australia, which is the old Telegraph track. And we just had a good time. And I think that's probably the biggest difference is, for us, it's still kind of just camping and
It's a lifestyle.
and touring. You've kind of managed to label it, which is overlanding. And so that's maybe the biggest difference. Maybe you focus a little bit more on having to have certain gear or plan things a little bit more. I mean, for sure, we've got all the gear and no idea in that truck, let's be honest. But, I think that's the biggest difference. For us, it's just always been going out, seeing the backyard and camping. And then I guess the fact that it's new over here is kind of mind-blowing. Why haven't you been driving around in your four-wheel drives, seeing America for the last 50 years?
Yeah, I mean, I think that here at least, like the idea of like road tripping and stuff like that is not like a new concept.
Yeah, that's
but
not new.
Yeah, this idea of like blending together like a more off-road focused style of road tripping is sort of like a newer concept. And I think there's like a weird demand to define what it is. And so then I think sometimes people put a little too much emphasis on like making it a very serious thing.
Yeah.
Instead of just
100%.
because there's like a pressure to like.
I think the biggest difference, to be honest, is that you know America's a lot older country, so you have bitumen roads going everywhere. If you want to get to the tip of Australia, like you cannot drive there on a bitumen road. So the only way to get there is to have a four-wheel drive. And there's a lot of locations throughout Australia. You can't cross from one side the other through the middle of Australia without crossing 1,100 sand dunes. So I think I think that's the difference. Is you just have more roads, and for us to get to certain spots in Australia, you need a 4-wheel drive, and then you need long range fuel tanks, and then you need somewhere to camp, just to get to that point. And I think that's the difference.
Yeah, it's hard to put my finger on something specific that we look at differently. Like after being here and seeing you guys, seeing that Forerunner and the Forerunners and how you guys talk and what I've seen on social media, it's very, that sort of thing and this sort of thing is very similar to how we do it back home. Like you've got a wagon, you've got a ute, you've decked it out a little bit and you want to go out in the backyard. But I feel like that's a small amount of people compared to what it is back home in Australia. You know what I mean, Matty? Like in Australia, we can't go out, we can't leave our driveway without seeing an Aussie built some form of lift tyres, rooftop tent that will just go out an hour or two from home and camp just for the weekend.
Yeah, 4 drives everywhere.
It's less of that here. Like when we see something, it's a van or it's a 2500 with a 50-foot long gooseneck with 7 slide outs. Like that's the majority of trucks we saw on our way from Oregon to Virginia.
You don't see a lot of overlanders.
Like
on the
you
road,
don't see these sorts of trucks as much as you do in Australia. I feel like that's the biggest thing, and that's my personal thoughts after being here a few days, like 2 weeks.
Yeah, Tommy's been in America for 2 weeks.
Yeah, coming straight from the Aussie scene, being a massive fan since I was born in the Aussie scene, to coming here and seeing what you guys now do after that Overland show. There's a lot. The Aussie scene is this, representing like the Forerunner and this. That's what 90% of the Aussie scene is. And I feel like that's less over here. It's more the RVing and busing.
I think the thing that's like, I might liken it to is the fact that like, to use this word again, because it's so ubiquitous in Australia, it is less of like a defining personality trait for people.
Yeah.
Because there's like, well, everybody does it.
Exactly.
So like, it's not
100%.
unique to me. Whereas in the United States, because of the fact that it's a relatively newer phenomenon that's caught on in the last few years, people utilize it more as like I
am an Overlander.
a differentiator. I mean, it's the same as like if in Australia you called yourself like an American football fan, people would be like, oh, really? Like that's kind of unique. Like not many people here watch it, you know? But over here, if you said that, people would just be like, yeah, well, you know, everybody does. You know, like everybody watches American football, you know?
That's pretty bang on, yeah. There's a small crew of people that are like, I watch NFL.
Yeah.
And everyone's
You're
like, oh, dude.
Yeah, cool, I know.
Whereas over here, if you said, I watch NFL, they'd be like, hold on, buddy.
On in every bar you go to.
What is the most popular full-size vehicle for a tourer?
Newish within the last few years, like having options, honestly. I mean, you'd see the occasional stock F-150 or Chevy pickup with a bed rack and a rooftop tent, and that'd be about it. Or a fiberglass shell with a tent on top of it, or an open bed stock full-size pickup with several totes in the back and a ground tent. Yeah. It's a pretty new option, because I think you know, here in America we've focused on outfitting more mid-size and SUV. So if we talk full-size SUV, you don't see Tahoes really out. It's like Land Cruisers. You know, I think that's, but as far as a popular thing now, I don't know. I see a lot of Dodges.
I was just gonna say,
going down that path for sure.
definitely because like AEV and Power Wagon snapped onto the Dodge platform like early. I think that's become like more frequently seen. The other thing is too, is that your definition of full size and our definition of full size might be a little bit different, because I would call this a Tundra a full size truck. We would call these like heavy duty trucks.
Oh.
So they'd be like a little different classification, because they're like 2500 and 3500s are like HD trucks, like they're diesels. They're like slightly above a full size.
So
truck.
we're talking like your GMCs, your 2500s, your Tundras, your F250s.
Those are different. Those are all different. So like F250s, F350s, Dodge Ram 2500s and 3500s, and then what am I missing? F350s, Chevys, like Chevy and GMC,
Chevy GMC.
2500 and 3500s. Those would all be like HD platforms.
Essentially, we classify all them as a full-size truck. So your Tundras,
F-150s, Dodge Ram 1500s. We call all those full size as well.
Yeah.
Tundras, F-150s, 1500s, whatever. I think the Tundra is probably the most popular.
Probably. I feel like, I don't know. I kind of want to go out on a limb and say that like so many people already have full-size trucks that they want to build like mid-size vehicles because it's something that they don't have.
we're fully backwards, right? So you guys are all built Overlanders in your mid-size vehicles, and the amount of people that have come up to me and just be like, geez, I wish we had the Toyota Hilux, right?
Yeah.
And in Australia,
That is.
everyone is, the movement at the moment is pushing towards full size.
That's because that's all we've ever had.
Yeah,
And
exactly. They've grown up with.
And that's what we've never had. So, like, the biggest vehicle in Australia that you could get was a 200 series Land Cruiser. The 200 series and the 79 are the biggest platform you could build a tourer on.
Yeah.
And then in the last 5-6 years, your 1500s, your 2500s,
Have
we don't
slowed.
get a Tundra. Your Chevs are all creeping in. And so we're trying to build the biggest, baddest. Like, these are cool, like, big platforms. And then, yeah, you guys come up and you're like, geez, I wish we could get a Hilux. And we're thinking, like,
That's the size.
what's wrong with you?
Yeah. They're little trucks.
It's very backwards. It's funny.
What's the American vehicle that you guys would want in Australia?
4Runner. Straight away.
It's a bold move.
Like, we've got similar cars back home, but there is not a car.
Now let me ask, even though they get, what did you say, turtled? What was your,
We get a Fortuner.
no. when
Oh,
you
they get turtled?
They get turtled. So tell them what turtled means.
That was
No, that was Tim.
Oh, we use that over here.
that wasn't
they get
us.
turtled? We use it?
Oh, yeah.
I've never heard that.
No, that wasn't our saying. No.
No, it wasn't. Oh, okay. Well, I'll cut that part.
I think of,
Leave that.
reckon-
You got to leave that part in now.
I'd do a 4Runner. Like, we have got very similar vehicles back.
We have a Fortuner that's identical.
We have a
almost.
Fortuner, which is similar, different motor, and we have a Prado, which is similar, different body, but same motor, same suspension. But there
driven
is
by mums only.
driven by men, real men. Anyway, there is not a 10 out of 10 vehicle like the 4Runner. Looks, lightweight, good suspension, IFS, coils in the rear. Good, like, there is not something like that in Australia with a good motor. Like, it offers that 4-litre V6, and you can put the V8s in it, can't you? No?
There's not an option for the
Not an option. But
If that thing come in a V8, then we're talking.
I'd be bringing a 4Runner to Australia 100% if I could. Matty?
I have no idea. We pretty much get most of the trucks you get now.
Yeah,
We don't get the Tacomas. Tundra's coming.
Tundra is coming, yeah.
Um,
The Chevy Tahoe. And like, yeah, those things are sick.
No.
Not as a full drive.
Can I tell you the one that I think you guys would have wanted?
Yeah, what?
The Ford Excursion.
We have.
Oh yeah, the Excursion. Is that the SUV like on an F250?
Yes.
Yeah.
Bro,
Yeah.
Did you get
I
those?
agree. No, never.
I'll tell you what I'd want then is, I don't even know if they make them anymore, but the F250 platform in the van. What's that? An Excursion?
It's an Econoline.
It's called the Kano line.
E250.
Yeah.
Yeah, he likes those things.
I'd bring that over. We've got a big van life culture in Australia, and no one does a proper 4x4 van. And if they were to bring over,
They're not making the
No, they're not,
E's
are they?
anymore, the Econolines.
I don't know. I don't keep up with the O'Connell line. To be completely honest.
See how strange the different things you want is? Like, that's not something I would love to build one just to see how far I could take it, but full on F250 van platform, the Econo van. There was one across from me at the show, the Sandy Torp one.
Yeah.
That's cool. Like
I'm telling you, the Excursion's what you want.
No, yeah.
The Excursion's basically what you're talking.
Scrap the Forerunner.
yeah, but it's an SUV, right? It's got 5 seats. It's not.
Stand up
You
in
can't stand up in it. And,
Yeah, but
It's actually got like 8 seats in it, but yeah, you can't stand up in it. The Econo line, I mean, maybe at your height.
One of our buddies had the excursions, all the excursions were like burgundy and tan and green and tan, and it was like that whole like Eddie Bauer
King Ranch
thing. They used to have a Overland challenge up in Vermont, and they would find the most hardcore roads and challenges to put trucks through, and our buddy bought one at a junkyard and kind of rebuilt it and put an excursion through the Vermont Overland Challenge and destroyed every body panel on it just to go and do it. Just such a machine.
I think one thing the Aussies would like really want, and one's coming, is the Tundra, and the Aussies would like a Tacoma.
Yeah.
We just want something just a bit bigger than the Hilux.
Slightly bigger than the Hilux, but not as big as a Tundra.
A Tacoma would slay
in Australia. Yeah.
in Australia. Yeah.
It's so
that's
funny how
fine.
different the cultures are. You know what I mean? Because we all want the Hilux.
We all want what we can't have.
Yeah.
I remember my first Overland Expo East 4 years ago, and circle with all these lads, and we're talking about all these trucks, and we're just starting to get the American things filter in, and this one guy's like, geez, I wish we got the 3-litre Toyota Hilux.
And
That was probably the weirdest thing I've ever heard in my life.
because you guys are getting these Cummins, these Power Strokes, and they're like, I want the 3-litre.
Big motors, big cars, big lift, big wheels, and you want a Hilux, which is our like, I don't know, it's nothing.
Cool. Well, I'm looking forward to tomorrow. What do you guys want to do?
I actually kind of want to do like, if we can see some beautiful scenery, but then like if we can hit like 1 or 2 hard hills.
Hard Hills. Okay.
Take them to Potts.
Let's do it.
So bring the Tundra.
No,
it won't make it.
We could do the first part of Potts.
Yeah.
And go up to the field, camp, and then drive out of Potts in the morning, go back down the trail. And you've done Potts, no?
I have not done Potts. I don't even know if, because of how little I've attempted to clearance for 37s, I don't know if the 4Runner is going to make it very far.
You would just, you just stuff the tire up into the fenders.
But we've already taken off one fender, so we'll just take off the rest of them.